Hey guys, Fred and Sheila, Hatfield McCoy Museum, FS Investigates. Sheila's behind the camera.
Hi guys, hope you're doing well today.
It's going to be a demonstration, short video on two objects.
Okay.
Flashlight and a gun.
Okay.
Now, in Asher's book, Asher says that he done a scientific testing of Johnny's gun and so forth, how he remained in his hand. I like to know what that is. I'm sure a lot of people would like to know what that consisted of. We'll never know because I don't think it even existed, but she's giving me that stare, so I'll move on.
Yeah, you're not close enough for me to kick.
This report filed by Detective Stewart says that Trooper Edrington's flashlight was laying 18 feet 10 inches from his patrol car, 4 foot 9 inches from his right toe. The flashlight was still on. Guys, in order as a police officer, your gun's over here if you're right hand dominant.
Right.
You never carry nothing in your gun hand because you never know when you're going to need your gun.
Exactly.
Your left hand, your flashlight is always in your left side. Right here's where they usually have it, so we can look down, and that's where we keep it at.
Okay.
What was this flashlight doing at his right toe? Now, let's say that I've got my flashlight and I've got it in my right hand. I don't know why he would have had it like that, but a lot of things is questionable. So let's just right hand, and somebody takes my gun and they bring it up here and boom. Now that's about as fast as I can fall.
Right.
But that's about three feet or so from my right foot.
Okay.
Now that flashlight didn't travel. When that flashlight fell, it fell. Rode probably 2 feet away. You've got to understand when Johnny, I just laid completely down. I just laid back. Imagine being shot point blank with a .357 Magnum round. It probably picked him up a little bit. It probably took that head, wherever your head goes, your body's going to fall.
Right.
So it's knocked him back a couple of feet. He goes that way a couple of feet. Flashlight goes that way a couple of feet. There's your 4 feet 9 inches. Same thing with the gun. And the second scenario, guys, is they said that Edrington had his gun, Asher did, in his left hand and pulled the trigger with his right. Well, if that's so, and it's point blank right here, now I laid a blanket down here to catch the gun. It's on a hard floor. Sheila and I started to go out to the park and do this, but can you imagine out here at the park and hold the gun up here? And probably wouldn't work out so good, so we have to do it inside the museum. But I'm going to drop the gun when we say bang. When you say bang, and I'm going to fall a little bit easier.
Well, watch that.
But watch how the gun would go. Let's say a person just shoots.
Yeah, bang. Okay.
And bang.
Right.
And then you fall.
Right.
And he's down here.
Right.
He's fell. Now, that's wherever that shot went off at, that's where that gun would fall.
Right.
Gun's probably 5-6 pounds. .357 is probably heavier than that. But Asher wants us to believe that the gun landed in his hand like this. Like this.
Pointing at
or
him.
somewhere like this. Somewhere on his chest. Something like that. Not only in his left hand, when he's right hand dominant, but it landed pointing at him. It was even still pointing at him. So you can imagine how off the wall that sounds. So if that's not probably the best demonstration of the flashlight and of the gun that you could get, but it gives you a basic understanding of how, if you'll Google and watch suicides, watch Watch these road rages on the side of the road when somebody shoots somebody out their vehicle window and the person drops. They drop the gun, they drop like a rock. Nobody ends up with the gun still in their hand. It just don't happen.
I know this is not the same thing, but this is just me. But the same thing is like when a person faints,
Yeah.
everything on them goes limp when they hit the floor.
Do you catch yourself when you're fainting? You know, I mean, even when you're lightheaded, you know
Right.
you're going to faint. You might catch yourself.
Right.
Have you ever been in the military and saw these guys in the military that locks their
black
knees
out.
when they're standing at attention? And if you lock your knees and you stand there for a while, you're going to go down. Never lock your knees.
Right.
But when you do, you'll see these guys. I seen one a while back at the inauguration, Trump's inauguration, or Biden or somebody, and flat as a fiddle.
Flitter, yeah.
Flitter fell forward. So you don't hold on to what you got. Your body goes limp. Can't express it enough. Can't prove it enough. You know, in that report, one place it says there that the hood ornament was broke on the car. There was 4 dents in the car. That signs of a struggle. The gravel was stirred up. There's supposed to be some pictures taken of it. But then another paragraph or two down, it says all the buttons were in place. All the medals were in place on his uniform. There was no signs of a struggle. Which one is it? It's the same officer doing the same report.
Could the person with the person or persons take time to straighten the shirt?
No, they wouldn't take time. But you don't have to take. Maybe there wasn't a struggle. Maybe there wasn't a struggle.
Caught off guard.
Again, we were told that a person, when he pulled up and Johnny got out, that he got out, he knew Johnny. That's what we were told.
Yep.
Walked back and started talking to Johnny. While he's talking to him, the passenger got out with a shotgun, held it on Trooper Edrington.
Yeah.
While he reached across and got his gun and shot him right in the head. He would have went back, especially if he would have had his flashlight. And if he would have had his flashlight and not been on guard, if it is somebody he's pulled over that he knows or was an informant, he might have had his flashlight in his right hand. Might not. There's no threat. He wouldn't have thought to put it in his left hand because there would have been no reason. He trusted this person.
Yeah.
Ever who was there. Ever who got the drop on him.
Yeah.
To take his gun from him. Guys, that's all we got. Thanks for joining us. Sheila will finish this video up.
Hi guys, hope you're having a great day. It's Fred and Sheila with Hatfield McCoy Museum and Adventures and FS Investigates.
Hey guys, thanks for joining us. This video is going to consist of 5 or 6 different topics probably.
Okay.
Shouldn't be real long. We'll make it real fast. There'll be a 2-part video here of a demonstration. And then it'll be these 3 or 4 items we're going to talk about. One of them is this photo behind us. Now, I don't know who these troopers are, especially with their heads down. But I did see, and somebody has commented about this one or that one being pallbearers at Johnny E's funeral.
Right.
They were such good friends. They were pallbearers. And once again, I'm not going to get into trying to prove this or that, who was friends, who wasn't, who didn't like each other, who had a falling out, who. But I do want to clarify that. Let me explain something to you about military and law enforcement funerals. And I've been to my share of, especially law enforcement. The department picks those. That would have came from troopers from probably Post 11. I would venture to say that every one of those troopers are out of Post 11 that worked with Johnny, Johnny E. So no matter what the relationship is, that would have been Doug Asher, the captain of the post, that would have chosen, That
would have picked?
Yeah. He would have chosen the troopers to serve as pallbearers. And I have a feeling, there's no need to speculate, but I have a feeling we've talked about every one of them there at one time or another in our reports or something. So, but you can't go by who's a pallbearer at a military or a law enforcement funeral, because that doesn't mean they were friends or the family chose them. I have a feeling that Jack and Patty just told Asher at the time they were so devastated for him to take care of it, and they picked the honor guard. The honor guard is over there to the right in the black. Well, here's one to the right here behind me.
Oh, behind
somewhere.
you, got the
Right
in the
there.
black. Yeah,
This is odd when you're looking.
yeah, it's kind of reversed or
Yeah.
whatever. Yeah.
And but that's Johnny E's funeral there. Another thing I want to talk about is I know I talk about the state police a lot, good and bad, and there's good and bad troopers, like there's good and bad and everything.
There you go. That's what I was gonna say.
And just like in the Doug Harless case, you know, where some people believe, I'm probably one of them, that maybe there was some political favoritism there. Maybe some police officers were trying to please a public official. His weed eater was stolen. They're trying to, maybe he's been good to them in a particular manner or whatever, and or the department, and they felt they owed him and they wanted to get right on it and they wanted to show him progress. And that could be it. Speculating, of course, using my opinion. But I can remember a case years and years ago where a former county attorney was supporting a particular retired state trooper. He was running for sheriff, and the county attorney, former county attorney, was backing him for sheriff. One of them was running for sheriff, and another trooper, an active trooper, the county attorney, he was just a regular private attorney at this time, had asked, he called in a favor. He had called in a favor.
Wow.
And he got this active duty trooper to file charges, falsely file charges. When the attorney later on was questioned about it, about his relationship with the retired trooper and also with the active trooper that had filed charges, had he ever performed any services for either one of them? Well, yeah, he had performed a divorce for one and a bankruptcy for the other. When receipts were questioned or asked for, there was no receipts. He did it as a personal favor. He didn't charge either one of them. Now, state police, of course, law enforcement have immunity. So if you file false charges against somebody, you can sue the department. You can sue, but you're not going to get the individual officer himself. He knows he's
covered.
He's covered.
Basically. Okay.
And that's why there's no such things as favors in law enforcement. There's just no, so it doesn't happen in life. When receipts were asked for, there was no receipts because there was no charge. So that means that if this attorney done something at no charge for these
them.
troopers, especially the one that filed false charges, then that was a favor being repaid, somewhat like I feel happened in Laurel County, my opinion, with Doug Harless. Thank you, babe. You know, I talked once before about at our graduation, Morgan T. Elkins was the state police commissioner at the time, and he come and gave a speech, and he said, I don't care if it's a cup of coffee, you don't take nothing for free, you don't, because somebody always wants something in return. That's interesting because I paid attention to that all through life. Now, you can research Morgan T. Elkins and see what happened to him in life, but what happened to a lot of Kentucky State Police Commissioners. So talk's
Cheap.
Easy, huh?
Cheap.
Talk's cheap.
That's the saying.
Actions speak louder than words. I got ready to say words speak louder than actions, and I remembered you. No. But it does. Actions speak louder than words. Over the years, people would get mad at me, and they'll know who they are if they're watching these videos, but Christmas time would come around and people would give gift cards. They'd pull up beside of me, flag me down in traffic. Merry Christmas, give a gift card. I don't want it. Don't. Thanks anyway. Your thoughtfulness, your thanking
They
me.
were being
I get paid. I get paid to do this, or I'd unlock somebody's car. Here, I'm on duty. That's part of my job.
Yeah.
And
they were just trying to be.
Sometimes people would throw them in the car, just throw the gift card, or they'd leave it on my windshield, under the windshield wiper. Come out from wherever I was at, see a gift card, and I'd take it and I'd put it underneath their windshield wiper, or I'd take it and put it in their mailbox. say thanks again. What about that same thing I was getting you for Christmas? And I'd give them their gift card back. Wasn't to be mean. Some people thought I was mean. It wasn't to be mean. It was just, I didn't want to feel obligated. I didn't want to ever feel pressure if that person had a wreck and I was working the wreck or something happened and it's a judgment call. And is it going to influence my judgment on the way I would work that wreck or I would call? And I have a feeling that it would have.
Good point.
And I just never, ever, and there's people out there that can back that up. But I just didn't do it. Doesn't make it illegal, but it's just like these guys here that filed false. And in the end, the trooper, the charges that he had filed were dismissed on the condition that didn't file a civil suit against anybody. That was the prerequisite. That was the requirement. Charges were dismissed as long as you don't charge, as long as you don't file no lawsuit. And I thought that was very impartial. That was or partial rather. Favoritism proved it right there. After the election was over and the results were in, and it wasn't going to influence the election whatsoever, then all of a sudden they decided we just want to drop charges on the condition don't file any suits. Moving on, guys. The information on the 4 sheriffs that Detective Hatfield and I had given to FBI agent Ron Poole in 1989, August of 89. We held a press conference on August the 7th. On August the 10th is when we were fired 3 days later. August the 11th, I think, is that news article where it's out in the newspaper that we showed. You
were let go because you turned him in for corruption.
We were fired because we knew we were going to be fired.
Well, sure.
We held a press conference and turned sheriff and several other public officials in for corruption. We turned them into the FBI earlier, Ron Poole and Mark Putnam.
Right.
Both those agents turned out to be not good agents. But I had some questions and I wanted to clarify something. The story that we put in yesterday's video had nothing to do that we know of.
There you go. Yeah.
Those 4 sheriffs, police chief, etc., that Ron Poole investigated after we had took the information to him because it was related to our sheriff, and he finally filed charges on them in 1990. But as far as I know, it had nothing. As far as we know, it had nothing to do with the Johnny Edrington case, as far as drugs or anything. We simply put that out there in that video to show Ron Poole's relationship to Robert Foley. Now, Robert Foley, in our opinion, may be a different story when being related to some stories that people have told us.
Right.
That say they have firsthand knowledge of what Bob told them. But as far as we know, there's no relationship between those drug deals that was going on in these other counties and sheriffs and with Johnny Edrington, as far as we know. Now, we have heard stories from that there was some information that Johnny E. may have had concerning things that was going on, and we don't know. We can't get it to file to see if he ever filed a report with his post commander, Doug Asher.
Okay.
Did he ever knock on the door and say, "Hey, Commander, I've got some information here you may like to hear, and here's where it's at." And, we know that. We know that according to their own reports, and I want to thank the state police, active and inactive.
That's right.
For reports that we've got, for paperwork, for stories, for information. We thank you.
We appreciate it very much.
But we posted a 4-page report by Doug Asher where he actually had to fill out a report where there was a struggle, or at least a confrontation, a misunderstanding, whatever you want to call it, between a Lowell County deputy sheriff trying to serve an EPO at Post 11 on Jimmy Phelps, and then Johnny Phelps had intercepted the deputy, and they had a shoving, lack of a better word, shoving match. And then Doug Asher became involved. So would Doug Asher have taken any from reading his book, from listening to his news stories? If Johnny E would have come to him with information of anything, would he have taken it serious? Would he have taken sides? Would he have done anything at all with it? Knowing, whoa. You know, guys, that brings me, I only have it wrote down here, but that brings me to another point.
Okay.
Doug Asher says in his book, me and Sheila was talking last night on this. He says in his book, he says it on that TV interview.
Higher ups.
It was the command staff. It was the higher ups. And he couldn't do nothing because it was the higher ups. And we asked that he ever report it, but let's forget about that.
Okay.
After Doug Asher left Post 11, guess where Doug Asher went? From what a gentleman, a former state trooper was telling us.
Where did he go?
He went to the command staff in Frankfurt.
Yeah.
He was on the command staff. The very same people that he said held him back, that he couldn't do nothing, but yet he didn't file a complaint or go to the FBI or anything, but he actually became part of that command staff in later years.
Oh.
Did he bring it up while he was a trooper? While he was in the command staff, did he bring it up, say, guys, I want this case reopened? I want this looked at?
Good point.
No, it was never brought up. Now, years later, after Doug Asher retired, was it Michael Sapp? From what we've been told, Michael Sapp, a state trooper that was friends with Johnny Edrington and believed the whole time, just like some other troopers, that it was a homicide. He was in internal affairs or something. He reopened the investigation. Now, he didn't let a lot of people know about this. It was a covert operation.
Secret.
They didn't want nobody to know it. And they went around to people and they done another investigation. The state police did. This was after, from what we understand, after Doug Asher had retired. He was out there.
I'm now calling. Ruh-roh. Got
Sorry,
on
guys.
silent. That's all right.
And guys, when y'all block your calls like that, of course, all I do is I block them.
Just leave a message if you don't care.
Leave a message if you want to talk, because other than that, I just block that number. If they don't want to leave who they are or something, it's probably a rumor, so I don't want to listen to it. Anyway, I was simply making a reference to on the Ron Poole and Robert Foley is the reason I brought up about the sheriffs that had been arrested, because that's how Ron Poole initially came to London and work in this area, or that area. We're in Casey County actually, and then he run up on Bob Foley and all this and that, and that's where that. And then Bob Foley goes on to kill 6 more people. He's on death row right now. Somebody did write us a message and say that road, I forget what the name of that road they said it was.
It said it leads into it.
But we was asking about.
Sickle. What was that? Yes. I remember you getting a text, but I forget the name of the road, guys.
Yeah,
sorry.
and I'll never find it now.
Do you want me to look for it?
No.
They said we were.
Pine Creek. Pine Creek is the road you are talking about in your video. And yes, it does come out on White Oak Road. Well, there was a fellow lived on White Oak Road that has been mine and Sheila's prime suspect for a long time.
Yeah.
Touch on 2 great medical examiners. This is going to be a short story. Kentucky's first medical examiner, George Nichols, dies at 77. Sheila will post a couple of pictures there when he was a young inmate. Dr. George Nichols, who built Kentucky's medical examiners program from the ground up and ran it for over 2.5 decades, died in Louisville. 77 years old, also served 2.5 decades as deputy coroner in Hamilton County, Ohio. Hamilton County, I believe that's before becoming Kentucky's chief medical examiner. You know, we talk about medical examiners, we talk about the autopsy on Johnny E. And an autopsy is only as good as the person doing the examination. It's like getting a second opinion at a doctor's office. If you ever get ready to have back surgery, I always have a second, third, fifth opinion. I can tell you that. first I can tell you, never have back surgery, no matter how bad it is, because it can get worse. But why would you have a second opinion of a doctor's thing of you?
Diagnosis.
Thank you, Punk. See, there she is, coming through for me.
We're a great team.
Yes, we are. But that's why you go for a second opinion.
To make sure.
To make sure that a mistake wasn't made.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what happened, contrary to what some of Doug Asher and people want to say. Well, there was an opinion by the medical examiner. He said it was S-side. No, he said it was undetermined. I don't want to repeat the last video, but that's what Dr. Huntsinker said.
Mm-hmm.
And then it went for a second, a third, a fourth, because your second was David Jones, your third was George Nichols, your fourth was Dr.
Vincent DeMayo,
a famous, and even on George Nichols here, it says performed more than 10,000 autopsies during his career. And I think Watchcott may have done as many as 20,000.
Oh my.
Vincent
DeMayo.
So why, and the FBI, if Equivocal or something is the name of that group that comes in and does. And you know, the funny thing is, I was going to contact, the FBI agent that done the exam on Johnny E's FBI suicide inquiry. He's deceased. You know, it's funny that everybody, just about that we go,
that you can question,
that we can question and look at, you know, because Mr. Asher has made so many assumptions or remarks in his book. And when we go to qualify them, certify them, make sure that they're correct, there's nobody to talk to. They're dead. We can't. All we have is what he said in his book.
So, do you know, from the, let's say, for better lack of words, from the immediate team that was investigating it, how many of them are still with us?
Oh, baby, I don't even know if there's any. Johnny and Jimmy.
And then Mr. Asher.
Johnny and Jimmy. I seen where,
wow.
Of course, we've got Stewart's report, Detective Stewart's, where he called it a murder investigation. And I seen where Larry Lewis, now I've been told that there's two Larry Lewises, so I seen where at least one Larry Lewis is deceased, whether that's the detective or the other one. I'm thinking they said it was the other Larry Lewis. So there may be, but we haven't heard from him. That's one we haven't heard from. If he is alive, we'd like to hear from him and see what his
take is.
Nichols witnessed the aftermath of some of the state's most tragic disasters, from mine disasters to the supper club that killed 165 people, to the bus crash, Larry Mahoney, drunk, going the wrong way and hit and killed a church bus. Left 27 people dead.
Yeah, I remember that.
You know, he didn't only leave 27 people dead. There's people that's out there that still alive today that's scarred for the rest of their life. They were, well, they weren't only traumatized, they were burnt. That school bus, that church bus caught on fire, and they were burnt, skin grafts, all their life. They've had to, he got out of jail after 10 years. I think he served about 8 or 10 years. Got out of jail and a free man. These people still living with their sentences.
That's sad.
Okay. He conducted more than 10,000 autopsies. I've seen thousands of them, he said, referring to gunshot wounds.
And this is Mr. Nichols.
This is George Nichols, the chief medical examiner, the one that signed, ultimately, the death certificate that says homicide after Vincent DeMayo, after David Jones, we're going to hear from here in a minute. All these people says that it was a homicide. Now, everybody says, Watchcott said, Huntsinker said it was a S-side, but he didn't say that. He even says in the Herald Leader, I have never told no one this was a S-side.
And I think we played that in the last video.
It's in the last video. It's out there. January the 6th, 1989. That was a newspaper. And he even tells the news reporter on LEX.
18.
I called it a undetermined. But again, that's where a second opinion came in. A second opinion, a third opinion, fourth opinion. They were needed to make sure they disputed any rumors that were out there. And the rumors were Doug Asher, Johnny Phelps, Jimmy Phelps. The only ones that we can certify so far. On Stewart's report, a detective that was in charge of the investigation, he says homicide, murder.
Well, didn't
That's what the offense report says.
Mr.
Yeah.
Didn't he say it was murder or homicide?
We ain't naming no names.
Oh,
It's okay.
I'll leave it out.
You just cut the name out. Oh well.
I'll just cut the whole part out.
No, you just cut that name out. So we're not naming names, but several people have told us that it was a homicide, that they never felt from the first night when they were out there on that road in the rain with Johnny's body laying over. They never felt that it was a S-side, other than the gun being placed in his hand to make it look that way. They picked up on it right off. He was described as being straightforward, to the point, and blunt. After former Kentucky Governor Matt Bevin pardoned someone convicted of raping a child because he said the victim's hymen wasn't penetrated. Nichols ripped him. He not only doesn't know the law, in my humble opinion, he clearly doesn't know medical and anatomy. Retired from state government at that point, he went on to say that in his career, he worked for over 6 governors. Unfortunately, I didn't have to report to that. AO. That's what Chief Medical Examiner George Nichols said about former Governor Matt Bevin.
Whoa.
He was pretty much straightforward. That's what the newspaper says. And blunt. After former Kentucky Governor Matt Bevin pardoned someone convicted of raping a child because he said that there was no penetration, is what he said. Nichols ripped him. He not only doesn't know the law, he doesn't know medical and anatomy. He was upset because the governor had pardoned a sex offender, a sex abuser, child predator. He was upset over that. A lot of people's been upset over that. And he did it to several. Retired from state government. And she'll show some pictures here of him back in his younger days. George Riley Nichols II was born November 22nd, 1946 in Louisville, became a pathologist instead of a regular doctor because he said he didn't like being around dying people. He didn't like working with living people who was dying. I guess it was too sad for him.
Heartbreaking, yeah.
Too heartbreaking, but he became an excellent medical examiner. Nichols was hired,
I said his profession to me would be sad to see all the.
Nichols was hired as the state's first medical examiner in 1977. 77, 87, 88. He'd already been a Kentucky's medical examiner for 11 years when Johnny Edgerton was murdered.
Mm-hmm.
He went about building a brand new professional organization. Nichols was hired. Death investigations was done by county coroners before he was hired. Okay. And that's what I remember way back in the day when your local funeral home would bring the hearse back up and pick up the dead body. And that was your coroner. That was your cause of death. What happened? Well, he grabbed his chest and fell over. Must have been a heart attack. Well, he had a bunch of pill bottles here open beside. Well, it must have been an overdose. Well, there was a gun over there. Where was the gun at? Well, it was laying over close to him. Well, he must have committed suicide. He's been shot. Where's the gun at? I don't know. There was no. Okay, somebody's carried it off, so there must be a homicide. And that's how the coroners called it back in the day. But when Nichols come in there, he changed Kentucky law. He wanted elected officials who were often local undertakers, had no medical education. They were just elected to that position. and he wanted them to be certified as coroners. And now all Kentucky coroners are certified.
That's good.
By the time he retired, 20 years later, he had built an office with 9 medical examiners in 4 counties who performed 2,200 autopsies a year.
Oh, my.
Now, he had 9 medical examiners in 4 counties. Well, now, one of those medical examiners that he had was Dr. not Vincent DeMayo, but Huntsinker. So that was one of the ones that he remembered, or that he had hired and worked for him. As chief medical examiner, he pushed to require coroners in Kentucky to receive training from certified medical examiners. Even though coroners in Kentucky are still elected, he wants them to go to classes and get certified on different things. You know, one of the things he certifies them on?
What?
We had a autopsy class when I was in the police academy years and years and years ago, and was the fact of homicide versus a suicide, and the thing about putting a gun close to a person, especially in their hand. That's something that's so elementary that I can't even comprehend somebody, but there's foolish people out there. In 1991, he was in charge of testing the remains of former President Zachary Taylor after a Florida author suggested he might have been poisoned with arsenic.
What?
Nichols reported after he retired in 1997, he formed a legal medical consulting firm where he worked for 28 years. Guys, after he retired from Kentucky, he became like Vincent DeMayo. Mm-hmm. And he started doing his own. I'm learning that, baby.
You are. Good job.
He's, I'm thinking of Mayo, like mayonnaise. Put D in front of it.
You're just talking about him after he retired. He worked at that firm for 28 years.
28 years. He had his own firm, just like Vincent DeMayo, where he would go out and do court cases and a professional witness, more or less, or review other people's autopsies and correct them or so forth.
Huh.
So, distinguished career, chief medical examiner here in Kentucky, George Nichols. The next one. Look, the next one, I'll let her put it in here.
Okay.
And, but there it is. The guy standing there with his hands on the shovel. That's me with the sunglasses on with the look at that Marine Corps hat. That's probably 40 years ago. And that's me standing there with the local coroner, Gene Hall, Rogers Funeral Home. And that's David Jones standing there with the black hat on with the star on it, holding on to a shovel. We're looking for a body somebody had hid. That was in the newspaper. That's Dr. David Jones. That was the medical examiner for the state of Kentucky that worked with George Nichols. David William Jones, Frankfort, passed away October 2019.
Wow.
2019. So one of them passed away in 2019, and one of them passed away in remember when
it was 77. It said there. See if it was down through there.
Don't have his date of death, but it wasn't long ago.
We'll look it up. I'm not going to add it.
Wasn't long ago. So this one here passed away, David Jones, in 2019. I think Mr. Asher's book came out in 2023, early 24.
Okay.
He was born April 10th, 1942 in Somerset, Kentucky. He attended Eastern Kentucky University, graduated from Kentucky Mortuary School, received special recognition from funeral directors. David enlisted in the National Guard, where he served over 20 years in various capacities. Executive Director, Medical Examiner's Office for over 30 years.
Wow.
Responsible for the operations of 4 Kentucky Medical Examiner's Office. He aided in hundreds of death investigations throughout Kentucky's and other states. David served as a consultant. Serving as pallbearers will be Dr. George Nichols. So he died in 2019. So George Nichols was one of his pallbearers. So George Nichols would have died sometime after 2019.
After that, yeah.
So that's, again, both of those are in the last couple of years. You know, the funny thing is, a lot of these state troopers that we can't contact now to ask questions about this case, they just died in 2019, 2020, 21.
Yep.
And one of the other pallbearers was Dr. John Huntsinker. So Dr. John Huntsinker and George Nichols and also David Jones were good friends. They worked together. They hired Huntsinker as one of their medical examiners.
Mm-hmm.
He was a young medical examiner at the time this happened. He was pressured from state police. I'll always believe that. That's my opinion. He says in his own words that at first it was undetermined. Then he says, if you want to know who killed him, dig them up. That was after Doug's book. Now, he could have meant two different things there. He could have meant that that's who killed him was himself, or maybe the evidence is still in the ground. If you want to know who killed him, maybe the evidence is still there. I don't know. know. You can take that two different ways.
Yeah. That's your story from the other day.
Okay. And I believe, guys, that is going to finish this video. We covered several different items, but I wanted to give tribute to those two medical examiners because those guys, had they not stood up, and not only them, re-examined the autopsy and re-examined the oldest trick in the book with the gun in the wrong hand. The gun in the hand, period, was totally not going to happen after you fall. But it was in the wrong hand. Somebody had placed it into the wrong hand. It wasn't even his dominant hand. Too many questions. A lot of questions out there.
Still left unanswered.
We feel that the good Lord will solve this in his time.
Yeah.
If it's meant to be.
He'll do it.
We'll pray about it. You guys pray about it. We're going to take a break on the Johnny Edrington case again until something. We were done. We had nothing else.
Right.
Until all of a sudden Facebook pages come alive, and maybe we take everything that happens in our life as the good Lord. If the good Lord's telling us something, that's a clue. That's you're supposed to do this. But we don't know. We live by faith.
That's right. You're supposed to do that.
Faith of a mustard seed. And unless something else comes up, we won't. This is probably going to do it on Johnny Edrington case for a little while because we haven't done no other videos on anything else. We've been tied up on this.
And that's okay.
And it's perfectly okay.
Yeah.
We've cleared up a lot of things. We've cleared up that Johnny Edrington's wife didn't get pregnant while he was married to another woman.
Right.
We cleared up a lot of things over the last 3 or 4 months since we started doing this. There's a lot of things. It's a lot of questions that we brought to the forefront. There's a lot of questions still hasn't been answered.
Right.
We think they could be answered. We would like to talk to Robert Foley. We would like to talk to Ronald Lee Bolin.
Yes.
If we can't talk to them, we wish credible law enforcement officers or the media would. We have a feeling if you treat them guys, they're on death row. They're going to be killed.
Right.
And you can't just take their word at it. If they say, yeah, I'm going to go ahead and tell you I did it. You can't take their word at it. They got to be able to tell you something that's in that file, something that nobody else knows, that a person knows that.
There's no deny. If they tell it, then you can say, okay.
But I believe if a person, I think they were mistreated by the Kentucky State Police. I'm not going to say mistreated because they had a trooper killed. And if they were a little bit, they probably talked a little bit rough or whatever. I don't know. I wasn't there. Let me cut that. I'll just cut that right there. He says he was mistreated. And if a person was to treat them right and they know anything, they may come forward. What do they got to lose? They're on death row. And then if they convince and they didn't have nothing to do with it, then it's time to start looking at other people.
I agree. Great.
You're up, baby.
All right, guys. Hope you're having a great day. Thanks for watching. Please like, subscribe, and share. And we'll catch you on the next one. God bless.
Thank you,
Bye.
guys.